let's get into this. Okay. I don't think any of this is really important to us. This is what we're going to go over for today. A buyers, basically, so what A buyers means is a long time in the industry, we have been taught to label prospects. This came mainly from, I think, Brian Buffini, who is a longtime consultant. If you can listen to like the Brian Buffini podcast every day, I'd recommend it. He's fantastic, gives you a really good viewpoint on the business and in life in general. But he put buyers into A, B, and C buckets, okay? There's no D because D stands for delete, basically. So A, B, and C. A means that a buyer is looking to actively buy in the next 6 months, okay? Those are the people that want to get all of our energy, all of our focus. A B is somebody who's going to be between like 6 months and a year. And then a C is somebody who's not going to buy this year, but you do want to cultivate that. So think of C as cultivate, and you're going to stay in touch with them, continue to provide value to them, okay? So that's what A buyers is, getting the appointment, preparing the buyer for buyer consultation. Buyer consultation is a big part of getting the appointment and the conversion process. So we will talk a lot about buyer consultation today, conducting the buyer consultation, getting the signed buyer agreement, and recap with AHA. So am I forgetting anything? Oh, daily success system. Yeah, we'll go over that. Okay, the right approach to close for a meeting is the only approach. Just ask for it. One of the most difficult things in this business, especially for somebody who doesn't come from a sales business. And honestly, before this, I was in property technology, or what they call prop tech, and I was in advertising sales for a company called LoopNet. And basically, even after years of sales experience, it never gets easier. You will always experience call reluctance. Some personalities don't have that. They're into it. They don't care. There's an interesting thing. Like my partner Jessie, my business partner, she's my sister. She loves to call our network and our sphere, people who know us and like us and trust us, and she's okay doing that all day long. I personally don't like that. I hate asking favors of people that are close to me. I am much happier calling complete strangers, because if they hang up on me or they're rude to me or something like that, they reject me, then I don't know them. They're strangers. They're just a voice on the phone. So I don't really care. There's not an emotional rejection connection there. So, but whereas Jessie hates calling strangers, she feels like she's super being, intrusive if she calls a complete stranger out of the phone book and bugs them, right? So it's not better or worse. It's just how you visualize things and how you need to feel comfortable going after the people that you need to go and ask for. So strangers or your sphere, you still got to go out and you still have to make that ask. Now, some people, if you guys haven't taken your DISC assessment to figure out your personality style, I recommend you do that. It used to be free on TonyRobbins.com. They now charge for it. There's another way to go about that. You could ask maybe Jordan or Katie Harters about where you can get that for free, or just try to Google free DISC profile. That's DISC. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time going into what the DISC means, but basically the D would be like dominant or direct. And so you need to learn kind of your personality style of communication so that when you are talking with buyers, whether they be your sphere or strangers, that you know how to talk with them. Some people are very comfortable. If somebody walks up to me, for example, and they say, "Hey, Phil, I want to be your lender. Would you like to work with me?" I'm just as comfortable being direct back and saying, "No, thanks. I've got 6 that I like to work with already," you know? Whereas other people that are not like that. They're the complete opposite. They're a high SC, for example, and they're going to say, "Hey, Phil, what's going on, man? How's your day going? Great to hear from you. Hey, so yeah, you watched the Blazers the other night? Yeah, that was a great win. So I was wondering, if it's not too much trouble, how's your lending partnerships going?" You know what I mean? It's like this totally roundabout way of getting to the point of just saying, "Do you want to work with me? I'm a good lender." So that's kind of, you have to figure out for yourself, how do you communicate? How do people communicate to you and be able to recognize that? But at the end of the day, you cannot allow yourself to get so twisted in your feelings of being too direct or rude to people that you don't ask. You have to figure out a direct way to ask for what you want, which is to know whether you can help them or help somebody else that they know. And those are really important. You can't forget that the second part of that is the most important part, because whereas asking somebody if they want help is great, we know that the average person buys and sells every 7 to 10 years. So your statistical ability of helping that person directly, if that's what your focus is on, is way off, right? You're going to get 1 or 2 chances every 10 years to help that person. However, that person knows on average 150 to 250 other people. So your statistical average of being able to help somebody they know goes through the roof. And so really what I want to encourage you guys is because you're newer agents, your focus is always really on that message of who do you know? I would love to help you, but really what I'm asking today is who do you know that I might be able to help? Okay. But we have to figure out a direct way of getting to that approach. Okay. So we talked about what an A buyer is. An A buyer is somebody when they go through the lead capture, they go into your database and you have the conversation with them that they are somebody who wants to buy or sell in the next 6 months. Or if they know somebody that's looking to buy or sell in the next 6 months. There's a 7-step buyer service cycle. Okay, I'm going to collapse this so that I can see. Okay, so number 1, leads to appointments. 2, prepare for the buyer consultation. Buyer consultation, find a home, offer, negotiate. We're going to go through each of these, so I'm not going to spend time on that. Ahas. Okay, let's hold on to our ahas. All right, so let's talk about getting to the appointment. Whoa. Go back. So first of all, what we really want to do is we always want to be available. Now, I have an aunt who's the reason why Jesse and I probably got into this business. She's a Hall of Fame agent with California Association of Realtors. She's been doing this business for almost 50 years, and she has a very different mindset and attitude than we do today about the business. When she was coming through the business, every call, every appointment, every opportunity had to take precedence over her life. And to this day, her children, who are, you know, in their 50s, will joke about her never being at their sports games showing up. And you know, that sounds terrible and sad, but the reality was up until about 10, 15, 20 years ago, max, that's how life was for a real estate broker. If somebody said, I want to go see a house today, you had to jump on that and you had to move and go do that. But then through the MREA book and watching other top producers, we learned that, you know what, if people really want to work with you, they'll work with you. And if they don't, then they won't. And that's okay. You don't have to win every single piece of business. Having a family and God, as far as Keller Williams is concerned, God, family, business, take precedence over the business. And so it is important today to respond to leads right away, but you need to learn to develop your boundaries and create what you're going to say to people when they say, I want to go look at a property today. We're going to learn to slow down. Okay, that's the number 1 piece of advice that you need to learn in this business. Slow down. There will be so many times where somebody will say, I need to go look at this property right now. And if you remind yourself to slow down and say, wait a minute, they're either going to work with me or they're not. They're either using me to open a door and they honestly could care less whether I write the offer for them or not, or they really want to work with me and they see my value. And if they see my value and they're not just calling to use me, then I can say to them, you know what, I can't show you that door today, but I'm available tomorrow at 9 a.m. Does that work for you? You know? And so you really want to make sure that you slow down and you make sure that that you are responding correctly. It doesn't mean don't call people back. That's the number 1 issue that people have, is they cannot get a hold of their brokers. And you have to give people texts back, emails back, calls back in a very quick amount of time, right? If it's a call, they should get a call back within an hour. If it's a text, it probably should be within 10 minutes, if not immediate. And if it's an email, then it's usually 24 hours. But do not delay on your lead inquiries. Make sure that they are heard and feel respected and appreciated for reaching out to you about your business. Okay. So that's a very important thing. I just talked a lot about number one, but we can't skip over that. How fast and the quality of response that you give is the first step in converting a buyer. Okay. So get valid and complete contact information. One of the biggest concerns I always had was asking too much. And so for a long time, I'd only ask for one piece of advice or one piece of thing, like maybe an email. Well, then their email never would show up to them. It would go to their spam folder. They would unsubscribe or block it. And so after a while, I got tired of not really being able to follow up with these people who seemed so interested to talk with me at the open house. So I started saying, look, going back to if they want to work with me and see my value, then they will give me what I ask. And what I ask is now a phone number. There's different ways that we can script it. There's no like silver bullet in this business. I spent a lot of years trying to figure out what the perfect script was, or what the perfect way of saying something was, or how to trick people into giving me their all their information. There's no way to do that. The best thing you can do is care for people. And if they don't reciprocate, then to move past that quickly. And if you don't already have thick skin, you've got to develop that quickly. You have to move past a mindset that tells you anything other than there is abundance in this business and in this world, and there will always be another lead that comes through the door. Okay, there will always be another person that you can help. And so when we just put those worries aside and say, look, I'm only going to ask for people, and I'm only going to work with people who are willing to give me both their email and their phone number, then that will be a great way to kind of cut out a lot of who is an A, B, and a C. Because you might get somebody who you think is an A. They walk through the door at your open house and they're actually a D. They have no interest in buying or selling, but you don't know that. And the only way you got to find that out really sooner than later than wasting months and months of trying to leave voicemails and find out why they ghosted you was because if you had just asked them, hey, can I get your phone number real quick so I can call or text you? And they say, no, thanks. Just email me. Well, right away, that tells you, all right, that's a great precursor to their commitment. They don't see my value, or they're not really buyers. Okay. So make sure that you really feel confident saying, hey, I need your email, and I need your phone number to be able to call or text you. And if you don't want to give it to me, then just let me know how I can be of service to you, because obviously being in contact with you is not that way. Determine their motivation to buy so you can speak to it. That's kind of what I just talked about. And, getting valid and complete contact information is a great way to do that. And then set an appointment, time and date for as soon as possible. Now, again, we'll talk about how you should be setting up your systems to convert buyers. And so we'll kind of get into that in a little bit here. Okay. 7 close to appointment tactics. Okay. Show the benefits, take back close, negative positive close, trial close, assumptive close, close. Here's the thing about sales, guys. If you don't come from a sales background, then what you have to understand is that sales is really just about asking the right questions. That's it. If you are not a fantastic question asker, then that's your focus. Right now, you just have to learn how to do that. There's a book, I believe it's called Ask Great Questions, or Leaders Ask Great Questions, or something like that. Anything that teaches you to do that is really valuable to you right now. And that's the thing is, the traditional salesy thing, like when my aunt was doing sales, 45 years ago, the hard close them right now type attitude is really what was prevalent. And there wasn't really a discussion of any other way of doing business, just like her having to leave her kids' soccer games every weekend because there wasn't a thought in her mind that there was any other way of doing the business. So I'm here to tell you that all these closes, these are great to learn, but they're really just questions. That's all they are. Okay. So, like a trial close, it's just a question. So now that we've kind of talked about what you're looking for in this house, it seems to check a lot of your boxes. Would you like to write an offer on this house? That's it. It's just a question. Would you like to write? No, 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 no. We're not ready yet. No, it's not quite doing it for us. Okay. Okay, great. Well, so let me assume though, okay, now we can like move to an assumptive close, right? So can I assume that if we find a house, right? So let me back up. Let me ask you a question. So this house, you say you don't want to write an offer off because you feel like the rooms are too small. So if we can assume that we can find a similar house in this neighborhood with rooms that are a little bigger, would you write on that house? Right? It's just another question. That's all. You're just trying to figure out what their needs are. It's not, I'm going to, get this offer written today. You're never going to pressure a buyer into spending hundreds of thousands of dollars into signing a contract. You just aren't. So a lot of these tie down closes, for example, it's all just a bunch of junk, honestly. Like, there's times for it, but in the real estate business, this is not the place for it. This is a business of service. It's a business of caring for people, and it's a business of repeat and referral business. And if you make somebody feel like they just got tied down, they're not working with you anymore. They're not referring business to you anymore. And so you can put pressure on people. One of the biggest mistakes I made as a rookie was that I was not pressured enough that when somebody would say, "Oh, I love this place, but I don't want to compete against other offers." And then I would say, "Oh, yeah, yeah, okay, that's fine. We don't have to do that. We'll go find another house that, doesn't have any competition on it." Well, then they're looking for properties for 2, 3 months later, and they keep going back and saying, "Gosh, man, I wish we had written on that one house. We just can't find anything that we love as much as that house, and we're super bummed that we missed out on it. And man, I just really wish we would have done that." So then you, as the buyer's agent, you have to be able to get past that and push a little harder and say, "Hey, look, I've been doing this long enough that I can tell you guys, if you don't compete on this house, you will be kicking yourself for the next several months that you didn't compete for it. This house you said you love, let's make an offer." And you know what? It sounds like your concern is overpaying for the house. Is that right? Okay. Well, here's how we can not overpay for the house. And you can lay it out for them, right? Then they feel like, okay, that talks to my concern. Now I'm ready to compete for the house. Going back, before you're in this situation where you've shown them the house, they've fallen in love with it, and now you're trying to talk them into making an offer on the house, you should have covered that way before during your buyer consultation. And that's where a lot of the sales happens, is when you are trying to ask these questions and get them past that point of insecurity, you're already trying to take a lot of those points off the table way before you get to that point. So that in that same conversation now sounds like this. Well, you don't want to compete, but do you remember when we talked in the buyer consultation about here's how the 3 ways are that you won't overpay for a house? And here's how I'll protect you with my sales comparables from overpaying. And remember how we talked about the markets has been a seller's market for several years and will continue to be. And so you're not really going to get away from being able to compete for the house. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, great. So knowing all that, what's keeping you from wanting to compete on this house? It's the best house that you've seen, isn't it? Right? So everything ends in a question, isn't it? Wouldn't you agree? Right? These people would call closes. They're just questions. They're just finding out the best way to serve people and what their needs are. Okay. Buyer objections at the appointment. So emphasize, we talked about empathy, identify the real issue. You do this through questions, offer a solution, and urge an agreement. Again, I don't always agree with this stuff that KW comes out with. I mean, urge an agreement. I don't know what that means. Ask questions, number one, totally agree with that. And part of the reason I don't agree with some of the stuff that KW puts out is because a lot of this stuff I feel like is dated, one, but two, um, it's geared towards the quick close. And there's nothing wrong with a quick close. If you can close somebody, especially right now today, our industry has just changed so that it is important that we get an exclusive buyer agreement with a buyer before we can even show them a house. And you have to know that every single buyer is agent is going after that. You walk through an open house, it's not like, can I get your contact information anymore? It's, can I get you to sign this buyer agreement, right? Zillow has been a disruptor for a long time, the whole time I've been in business, and I've never worried about it. I've always listened to Gary Keller talk about how this is a business that we can outbeat technology because the more information technology gives to people, the more they need a human to decipher it. Okay. And so there's always going to be a need for a inhuman real estate broker to decipher the information and lead people to the right decision. That's all fine and good, but the problem I have now with Zillow and technology websites like Redfin is that because we need to have a buyer broker agreement signed early before we can serve them, I think the technology websites like Zillow are in a position to be able to get people to sign those agreements before they go look at property, before they go out and look at open houses. When you go to set up a tour on Zillow, I believe they already have you sign like a user agreement or something to that effect, rules and regulations or something like that. And so it's very easy for them to change that into a buyer broker agreement and for people to not really read what they're signing and to just, sign it and say, well, what do I care? If this is the way the industry is going and I have to sign this to go look at this house that I really want to go look at and I don't have a broker, well, I don't care. Fine. Assign me a broker. So I think we are for the first time, I think technology could have a very big hand up on this. And so, I say today that there may not be a necessity to immediately close on a buyer lead, but I could be changing my tune on that very quickly and saying you have to become more aggressive if you're going to survive in this business, and you have to get people to agree to meet you immediately. Right now, the way I operate is building rapport, offering value, and we'll talk about what some of those value propositions are, exchanging that value for their information, and then following up with them. But you can see how that's like 3 or 4 steps that could be very different than they walk through the door at the open house and all of a sudden you're pouncing on them and being like, hey, come sign this buyer agreement if you want to see this house and all this other nonsense that agents are already getting in trouble for doing. Okay. Are there any questions so far? I've been talking a lot. Anybody have any questions about the last slides? No? Okay.
Wait, I have a question about the Zillow thing. So you think that they will assign brokers from Zillow, like in that way?
Yeah, I mean that's a very real possibility because I believe they tried to become their own brokerage essentially and have Zillow agents. And I don't know if they're still doing that or not. When they do these rollouts, they roll them out in different parts of the country. And a lot of times they're done in places like Phoenix, Arizona, because there's so much urban sprawl. All the houses are the exact same, right? Same square footage, same layout, same look, same everything. And so therefore it's very easy to do like an A/B test. And to do it somewhere like in Portland, where you got houses on the same block that were built over 100 years from each other, it's not the same. And so, so we don't get up here in Northwest a lot of the rollouts. And so I'm not sure if in other parts of the country there's Zillow specific agents that would get these leads, or if they would just be what we call like the premier agents who are paying a lot of money now to get these leads. It used to be, if you aren't familiar with the business and how Zillow works, it used to be that you would pay a lot of money and you would be like one of 4 or 5 agents on a page. And there were check boxes so that the buyer had to check the box next to the name or the face or profile picture of who they wanted to reach out to them. Some people would check all the boxes and they'd get like 5 calls. Some people would check one box, based off of what the guy or gal looks like. It wasn't really fair or scientific. So then I believe they made a change. I can't remember. They've made many changes over the years, but then what happened was all these leads were going out to the agents, and the agents weren't calling them. There's something like 90 some percent, I think, of leads were just never called. And Zillow said, well, gosh, there's a lot of business that's just not being touched. And so what they did, and I believe realtor.com was the first to do this, but they basically took the leads back from, not back, but instead of sending out a lead to the agent, they kept it in-house. And they had their in-house inside sales team convert that lead. And then once that lead was converted, now they have an A buyer, right? Somebody who's looking to buy immediately. And then they would give that to the agents that are signed up. What they did then, though, is they said, well, we're not going to charge you a monthly subscription rate. We're going to charge you a percent. So now it's, I don't know what it is now. I think it's at least 35% referral fee, if not 40. And between us, like the industry standard is 25%. So Zillow's really charging a lot more for their leads than if you were to build like a agent-to-agent referral business, for example. So that's the thing. And that's why, again, Gary Keller and Keller Williams has always been against Zillow and relying on a company like Zillow to give you leads, because at a flip of a switch, they can go from charging you $2,000 a month for leads to charging you 35-40% of every deal, which of course is, depending on the house, it could be, $10,000. So you really got to be able to create a business where you create your own leads. And then once you develop that, if you want to supplement it with Zillow leads, well, great, but they're not cheap and they're only getting more expensive. So we'll see, but if you can develop a way to urge an agreement for number 5 or get people to commit to you quickly, great. In this day and age, it's going to be more and more difficult to do that. Okay, so we'll pass ahas because I just took questions. Any other burning questions? How are we doing on time? Talked a lot. 150. All right, let's burn through this. Okay, preparing the buyer consultation. So, okay, the buyer consultation. Okay, I'm going to read what they've got, and then I'm just going to fill in what my thoughts are. So confirm an appointment date. Okay, so when you're at an open house and let's assume that you don't have an item of value to trade for their contact information, meaning you don't have a guide. Okay, you could develop a buying guide with really good information in it. You could have a home buying class. We have one of the longest running home buying classes, I think, in Portland. It's month to month, and it's been fantastic as far as converting buyer leads. So that's kind of what we would do is when somebody, if we were at an open house, for example, somebody comes in the door, we would say, have you taken a buyer class yet? Right? Have you learned about the process, especially if you're not from the state and you're not familiar with how to buy and sell in Oregon or in Portland? Have you learned that yet? That's the question. And we kind of know the answer to that question. The answer is no, right? Or if they say, yeah, my broker's kind of talked to me about the process or something like that, then it's like, great, okay. But the giveaway, the freebie is, hey, we have this buyer class. It's coming up. You should join. It's free. And here's the sign-in page. Put in your phone number and your email, and we'll get you signed up. Now, if you don't have that, because that takes a lot of time and effort to build, okay, it's not something you can just pop up. Let's say your quickest, easiest thing to build, which you still have to build it, is your buyer consultation. Okay, What is a buyer consultation? A buyer consultation is essentially a home buying class that you're just doing one-on-one. So you can build your home buying class pretty easy by offering it to people, offering a home buyer consultation for the masses. You have to build like a nice deck and figure out where and when and the cost involved and things like that. But essentially, that's kind of what you're doing. The information can be very similar. And so you can offer that one-on-one. Somebody walks in an open house and you say, hey, have you done a buyer consultation yet? Or you can call it a class. Have you done a buyer class yet? Well, I'm happy to meet with you and go over that information so that you feel more prepared to move forward with this process. Is that something that would be of interest to you? They say, well, yeah, I think I could meet and go over that. Okay, great. So number one, you're going to confirm an appointment date and time. And that's pretty simple, right? Like, okay, yeah, well, can you meet later tonight? Can you meet, this weekend? When's a good time? Obviously, the sooner you can meet them, the better, so that they remember who you are. Confirm appointment location. You can meet in person. It takes more time, energy, and effort and gas to do that. Okay. If you're running all over town and then trying to figure out like what Starbucks is a good place to go, and then you get there and it's too loud or there's no seats available or blah, 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 you don't control that situation and you don't look great. I would highly recommend Zoom is just a good, easy way to do it. You're face to face with people, they're comfortable with it, it's fast and it's easy. And really all you have to worry about then is number one, when can you guys meet? I'll send you a Zoom link and we can do it in an hour. Okay. So Zoom is still very much a big part of our business. Ensure all decision makers attend. The way we ask this is, are you buying the house by yourself or are you buying it with somebody else? Like, yeah, my girlfriend and I are buying it together. Okay, great. When is a good time that you and your girlfriend can both be on the call so that I can answer both of your questions? Right? This isn't like a salesy, I'm going to close you guys, right there on the call. You're going to sign my paperwork and I need both of you guys there to sign. It's not like that, right? It's like, I want to make sure that both of you guys get your questions answered. And so for convenience sake, let's make sure that everybody's there. Okay. Complete your buyer guide. I don't know what they're talking about there, but you could have, there's things called buyer guides essentially where you're asking them kind of like what they're looking for. What do they want? How many bedrooms? What's important? What are their hobbies? What's their lifestyle? You kind of get into that. And if you need help with that, then, we can discuss where to find that further. Prepare the meeting space. We kind of talked about that. You want to be prepared. You want to just like shoot it in the dark and say, yeah, let's go meet at Starbucks over on such and such, and then find out that there's no seats available when you get there. Review the lead sheet. I guess if you have a lead sheet, you might want to review that or something. I don't know. Okay. Top 10 service areas of the buyer value proposition. Let's talk about that. I'm a few pages behind here. Okay, confirm appointment date and time. Nope. Next page. Top 10 service areas of the buyer value proposition. Needs analysis. Pre-qualification, pre-approval. Let's talk about that very quickly. So nobody ever uses pre-qualifications anymore. Pre-qual, I guess, exists technically. What a pre-qual is, if you don't know, is if I were to call my lender and say, hey, Lori, I just saw a duplex that I want to buy. It's for this cost. I make about this amount of money. Do you think I could buy it? She'd look at it and be like, yeah, you make $200,000 a year and it's a $500,000 property. With today's interest rates, you're probably at like $3,500 a month and you make $10,000 a month. Yeah, you can buy it. That's a pre-qual. It means absolutely nothing. A pre-approval, that's when Lori says, hey, send me your tax statements, your W-2. I want to know what your loan to value ratio is. Do you have $50,000 on credit card debt? Right? And you have another $50,000 car loan out? Like, whew, all of a sudden you can't afford that, So a pre-approval is the terminology you want to use, and it's the thing that you need to get. Everybody needs to get pre-approved. Neighborhood information, home search, all this stuff is important. Make an offer. I'm not sure what they're talking about. Negotiating to buy, vendor coordination, pre-close preparation, closing, post-closing. Oh, so they're just talking about the areas where maybe you talk about this in your buyer consultation. You say, this is how I'm different from the other 8,900 realtors in the Portland metro area. This is what I provide. This is how I like to work, and this is why, I think you'll be more success. I know you'll be more successful working with me. And so basically, I can go over these very quickly. They're a little dry, but just in case you don't know, because you've only been in the business for a few weeks, needs analysis is really, it's important that you understand who your client is. Okay. And it goes back to when I was telling you to slow down. A lot of times, especially if we're working with a friend or a family member, we think we know what they want. We think because they told us over dinner a week or two ago that they needed to upgrade from a 2-bedroom to a 3-bedroom house, that we automatically know what 3 bedrooms they want or are looking for. And time again, you will learn that that's not the case. You have to slow down and treat everybody the same, whether they're a complete stranger or whether you've known them your entire life. And you have to dig deep and ask those questions. What are you looking for? Now, the next part, pre-approval. You have to get them pre-approved. There is no point in taking them out, getting them to fall in love with a house, and then find out that they cannot afford the house. They will not hate you faster than if you get their hopes up and then take that away from them. So slow down. And as much as they say, oh, I saw this house on Zillow, can you go show it to me? Okay. I'm not going to tell you no. I'm not going to be a hard ass about it. I will waste my time and gas one time. Okay. That's my personal rule. I will give somebody one showing because that one showing allows me to understand their needs analysis better. When we walk into that house and they're like, oh, I need something way more updated than this. Okay, great. And then I'll have that conversation with them and ask those questions. What are you looking for? What do you think about the size of the yard? What do you think about the size of the bedrooms? Like, what do you think about this neighborhood? And so it's just an accelerated way to have like a buyer consultation with them. So I'll give you one showing, but if you say, hey, Phil, I got this list of 6 houses to go look at, well, then I'm going to say, great. I'm going to have my lender, Lori, give you a call, and I need you to get pre-approved before we go see those this weekend. And good news, it only takes 24 hours to get pre-approved. So I'll just have you do that today if you're really serious about buying these 6 houses. And then on Saturday, I'll set up the tour and we'll go see them, But you need to get them pre-approved. Neighborhood information. I guess kind of part of understanding, I'm getting blown up here. That's kind of part of, I feel like I should probably pick up in case my daughter or son needs to make sure that so neighborhood information is important. Home search, make an offer. So when you're going through these items of value that you're doing for them, I would say make an offer. Home search is good, but a lot of buyers are savvy these days. They can find their own home. It's not great when an agent doesn't help them with that though. If you're just sending agent or people everything they've got, or everything that you get on their search on the RMLS, I'm going to open up this window, then you're not really doing them any service. You're not really helping them. So, why are they working with you? So, make sure that you're really understanding what their needs analysis is and you're getting them pre-approved so you know exactly what their budget is. And then you can, know exactly what kind of homes to send them on their home search. Making an offer. So I believe because of buyer demand that we will be in a seller's market for many years to come. There just is not enough houses to go around. And so, so you are going to have to get used to being in a market where you compete for offers and you have to get comfortable with that. What are you doing to, sorry guys, they've called back twice now. I want to make sure it's not an emergency. Give me one second if you have to go to the bathroom or something like that. This might be a good time.
Time for the bio break.
Okay, I have an inspection kind of blowing up here for a second, so 1 second, guys. Hey, Jess, you there?
Hey, Sarah. I wanted to ask you a question real quick. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. So yesterday in the Ignite class, the instructor said that he was going to email us some
I didn't get it either.
okay, I'm just wondering if they didn't have like my email or something. Okay.
So honestly, that's the second
Okay,
time
this
I've been
is-
in the class when they said they were going to give us information and I never got it. But I actually really wanted that information
Hey,
from
are
yesterday.
you close?
Yeah.
So
same. Me too.
I actually have a meeting
Okay,
with
because the guy just
Jennifer
got turned away from by
after
the
this
seller.
one,
I
Okay.
guess the listing
and I'm
agent
going to
didn't,
ask her what the path
remember
is.
to
Do you
tell him that he
remember who
was
the
gonna be there
instructor was for it?
at 2 o'clock.
I don't. But
Yeah,
I do know
so-
that the Ignite
so
meetings are
when you
recorded,
get
so I
there,
could
just
probably find
Yeah,
out.
I'm
Oh, no, I
guessing
just
Jen can
called
figure it
Katie, the
out pretty
listing
quick,
agent,
but I'm
and
gonna
asked her
ask her,
to
so
let her know.
I'll put you down
So-
too as to reference that we didn't get
No,
the
but the seller
information.
turned him
Okay, that would
away.
be awesome. Thank
So now we
you.
gotta
Yeah, of
smooth
course.
that over.
I'm the same way.
Okay.
So. Yeah, I know. All right, I'm in the middle of teaching an Ignite course right now, so this is kind of awkward, but okay. All right. No, I told him to stick around. Okay. All right. Bye. Okay. Sorry, guys. This is just the life here. Hold on. One more call, then we should be good. Hi, yeah, so if you could just stick around, my partner will be there in just a minute, and the listing agent is calling the seller to remind her that you guys will be there. Okay? I'm not, oh, well, my partner is Jesse Panaka. Yes. Yep, she'll be there in just like a few minutes. Okay, thanks so much. Thanks, bye. Okay,
We're all getting real life experience.
exactly. Yeah, thank you for your patience with that. What do I need to do here? Share. Can you guys see the screen?
Yes, we can see it.
You can see
Or
it.
I can see it.
Let's get back to where are we at here? 10 service things. Play from current slide. So the lesson that just happened with the buyers. So we have some buyers. They are in contract on a house in Gladstone. This house is an older house, was built in 1948, but the seller decided that it was a better idea to spend $22,000 on solar panels rather than fixing the house. And so the air conditioner is out of date, the furnace is out of date, the sewer is needing to be repaired. There's tens of thousands of dollars potentially that need to get fixed. And so the seller's pissed because she kind of knows what's coming down the pipe. She turned away an inspector. Whenever you have a buyer and they go in contract, the inspection period is not just the inspector. Okay, that's just the tip of the iceberg. And inspectors are not experts by any means. They're generalists. And a lot of times they have their own opinions about what's good and what's bad. And so we had an inspection, as we always do, and these potential issues came up. And so what you always do is you then go out and get the real experts to do it, right? An inspector might say, oh yeah, your roof, can't tell you how many times I've had an inspector say, oh, the roof needs to be replaced. You know, it's got a real loss of granulation, and it's probably, only got a few years on it. And then I'll have my roofer come out, and my roofer will be like, no. These shingles are how they're supposed to be, and this roof has 15 years left on it. So you never just go off what the inspector says. You get the inspectors out, or the experts out there. It's not easy, especially when you're competing in like this situation. We brought it down to a 5-day inspection period so that the sellers could know sooner whether the buyers are in and out. That's why you do that rather than a 7 or 10-day inspection period. And so you got to move. You got 5 days to have the inspection, figure out what needs to get looked at, get the inspectors to come out for you, give you a free inspection because nobody has money to pay. Nobody's paying these guys to do this. And then get them to write up and submit their bid to you all before the time elapses on the inspection period, right? So our inspection period closes Friday, 5 p.m. We really have to know by Thursday night, how much money we want to ask the sellers for and what kind of fixes we want to ask for and get that over to them so that they have time. You guys probably all know this because I'm sure you're studying your contracts every day and know them by heart, right? Forward and backwards. If you don't, that's what you should be doing. That's the most important thing in this business. But if a buyer asks the seller for a fix or a credit or something like that, the seller is not obligated to give that to the buyer. And they could just go silent and not give a response to the buyer. And at the point that the time elapses, like 5 p.m. on Friday for us, if we have not gotten the sellers to agree in writing that they will give us the money back, then the contract is written so that it is assumed the buyer is willing to move forward with the house. So the buyer moves on. They do not automatically fall out of contract. They are still in contract, and the buyer now has basically agreed to take on all the major fixes that they had a problem with. There's really only one way that a buyer has control over the situation, and that is to back out of the deal. But the backing out of the deal has to be done by 5 o'clock on Friday, not any Friday, whatever the date is of your inspection period ending. But if by 5 p.m. they have not signed and delivered that notice of cancellation, they're still in contract and they're moving forward with those fixes. And now they've lost their earnest money because that's really the last chance for them to back out of the deal. So it's a serious deal to not be able to get all the information that you need for your client, to understand what the bid amount is, what the costs in the future are really going to cost your client, and then get that put together in a presentation and get that over to the seller to agree to, all by the time deadline. So that's what's happening today. Is we have several inspectors going out looking at the property. This inspector basically got turned away by the seller. The seller said, you don't need to be here. It's not an issue what you want to look at, and goodbye. So I had to call the listing agent. I had to call the contractor, and I had to call my partner. So that's why it took me so long. So I'm sorry for that delay. Okay, but that's the business, right? That's why it's exciting. Okay, buyer guide content. So look at this sheet, go back and take a look at it. We're not going to spend time going over all this stuff. But there's so much good information in here that for you to create a buyer guide or a buyer consultation or a buyer class off of, there is no lack of information to go after that. Okay. The cool thing about Keller Williams is that they have this stuff set up for you. Okay. If you want to go onto command, you can go into templates or wherever, and you can find one, and they're generally pretty good. You're going to want to make it your own, but they're a great starting point. Okay. They're not going to take us through this thing, are they? Well, okay. So table of contents, your needs come first. This is a buyer guide, dream home. I use this one personally. I think I had the same picture of this lady and her daughter there. So, oh, great. Now I have to plug in for battery. Build your preference profile. So these are all, I think, tools that you get to download from command. So really a great perk for being with Keller Williams. And then you get to kind of figure out, I'm going to change my angle here and try to get plugged in. Check my time. So these are great little perks for being with KW. So check those out. We're not going to spend a lot of time today. Neighborhood insights. Okay, so you can go into command and you can set up different neighborhoods that the people want to live in, and it'll give you some insights. You can also go to Redfin, Zillow, Trulia. Trulia is a good spot for that too. You don't have to use Command, but you can if you want. How buying a home works. Yeah, so we're just kind of showing you templates that are available to you. These are all great. I mean, you can create, I've had my assistants build these in Canva. If you're not familiar with Canva, you should look into that. It's a really great way to build all kinds of things from, Instagram, real templates to, flyers for events and things like that. Home loans made simple. Okay, let's talk really quickly about who your dream team is, as I call them. Okay. The number one partner, and this is a real partner that you need to do, is get a lender. And I think Isabel and I were talking about this a little bit. It's important that you have your own lender that you wholeheartedly believe in. Some people believe in having 2 or 3. You should always have 2 or 3. If your one lender person is on vacation for 2 weeks and you got a buyer and needs to get pre-approved, what are you going to do? You have to have a fallback. So you really should have 2 or 3 really great lenders. But what I found over the years is, back when California is so litigious, is when I was practicing in California, we were much more attuned to this kind of stuff. And it was almost like mandated that if you give anybody a recommendation, you need to give them at least 3, and then you need to let them pick. So you wouldn't say, oh yeah, call Lori, she's amazing. You'd just say, Lori, I've worked with, she's great, but so is Barbara and Jim. And I recommend calling all 3 and you decide. The reality is a lot of clients, that's too much work. Some clients want that, but some clients just want to know, who should I call? Like, let's just get the ball moving. I trust you. I like you. I want to, who should I call? And so in Oregon, it's a little better. I think Jim, our PB, would might disagree with me on this, and fair enough, because he's all about risk management. But it's okay to stand behind somebody and say, this is the lender I highly recommend. She's fantastic. I recommend you go with her. If you don't like her, right? You guys don't communicate well, you can't get a hold of her, then let me know and I can give you 2 or 3 other good options. But start with her because I know she's got the best customer service, the best experience, and the best rates. And so just start there. Okay. So you have to choose what's best for you. If you are risk adverse, give people 2 or 3 options. If you don't care and you just want to say, hey, this is the person to call, then that's cool too. Do that. But here's what you need to do. You need to go and interview that person. And you need to ask them, how are you going to be my partner? Because you can call any lender, all right? And lenders will call on you and they will say, hey, we got great rates, we got great loan products, and I'd love to work with you. And I always ask them, I say, well, that's cool. I have a lender partner right now. She pays for 50% of all my marketing costs. Are you able or willing to do that? And almost all of them are like, nope, no, I don't have the budget for that. Oh, I'm sorry, my company doesn't do that. And I'm like, oh, that's too bad. Okay, so what else are you going to do different than what she does? Let's get real, because this is a business to business relationship, right? And there's a lot of lenders out there and there's a lot of brokers. And so you need to get real and be more direct about it. Say, look, how are you going to benefit my business? How am I going to benefit your business? And you're looking for the cream of the crop. You're looking for the people who are going to be able to articulate what exactly they do. For example, what I call my number 2 lender, who's not number 2, he's fantastic. My other guy, so I use Lori, and Lori pays for 50% of our home buying classes, 50% of our newsletters, 50% of our online ads. Like, she is a real partner in my business. Okay. And so Lori gets all my first leads, but sometimes Lori is unavailable or busy, or I just think that the client's not going to be a good fit for her personality wise. So I go to Joe. Okay. Now, Joe, Joe does things differently. Joe is awesome at video. Joe, I love that he sends clients a video recap of their loan documents and breaks down exactly in video what they need to understand. I'm not sure Lori does that. And Joe also has different partnerships with hard money lenders. So in a pinch, if somebody falls out of contract because they can't get a loan, like let's say, for example, I had a doctor client. He had a lot of money, but during COVID, the hospital moved him from W-2 to commission. And so when the loan officer called, or the underwriter called and said, hey, you know, I see that your doctor's on commission. What if he gets COVID and can't be in work for 2 weeks or a month? Like, does he still get paid? And then the doctor's manager was like, no, he doesn't get paid. Well, the underwriter was like, oh, well, so, okay, I don't care how much money he has in savings. If he can't continue to make payments because he gets sick, like that's a problem. He lost the loan. So we had to move quickly to Joe, and Joe was able to get him a loan through a private equity firm that Lori didn't have access to. You know what I mean? So you really need to have in your team, you should have 2 or 3 different lenders, and they should do things differently. One should be a different communication style. One should be maybe more tech involved. One should be more experienced. One should be more willing to help you pay for your marketing. You know, like there should be a yin and yang so that you always kind of have your bases covered. But your lender is your number one partner. It is the most important person who is going to make or break your client's experience. And when you refer that client to your lender, that's the first referral you make, right? When you go to get them pre-approved, that is an extension of your business and your experience. So if they're hard to get a hold of, they're hard to talk to, they don't give good customer service and follow up and things like that. That is a direct connection to you. Okay, so you really want to make sure that you are interviewing really great lenders and have a couple. They're not all going to last. They're not all going to work. You're gonna find different ones over the years. But if you don't have a lender, then that's also top of your list right now, is to find that lender partner. Okay. And then ask agents, who do you use? And you start seeing the same names, it's okay to use them. Now, you might hear agents say over the years, like, my lender gives me leads, and you should only work with a lender who gives you leads. Okay. Doesn't really work that way all the time. Maybe you can get a lender who is a really good friend of yours, or you're like their best client and they're afraid of losing you. And so therefore they send you leads. But right now, starting out in your career, that's not your focus. Your focus is on building trust with the most professional lender out there. And then finding out, can they also go above and beyond for your clients in their time of need and get them the best rates? Because if you keep sending people to a lender, they're naturally going to shop that. They're naturally going to go to OnPoint or something like that, and they're going to have lower rates. And they're going to keep wondering, why are you sending me to this lender who's costing me a lot more money per month? And I can only buy a $400,000 house when I went over to this credit union. And with their interest rates, I can buy a $450,000 house. Like, why are you sending me to this guy? So you need to have a couple. And honestly, having one in with a credit union is not a bad idea. Okay. So let's talk about home loans made simple. You really rely on that lender partner. It's a very important part of your business. Having a good title and escrow officer and a sales rep. Okay, so those are 2 different people. So we use Christy Denahan with WFG. She's fantastic. Highly recommend her. But really, it's Ashley Wells who is the sales rep. And it's Ashley who helps us when we need addresses, sticky labels or mailing addresses, marketing information, market stats, anything like that. She doesn't help with money. That's the lender side. Lenders can help pay money towards your marketing, but title cannot. And so, but having a great sales rep who's on it, that is important. Okay, so find a good lender, but usually the title reps will call you, and that's good if they're reaching out to you. I think ours right now, for the office is connected with title or what's it called? Is it called title escrow or tile? What is it called? I don't know. But somebody, I'm sure if they haven't reached out to you already, they will, and they're pretty good. You can rely on them. These are just more guides that that you can download off command, and you should, and start putting those into your buyer presentation. Are there any questions? I don't know if we need ahas right now, but anybody have any questions right now?
So I'm now working with one lender and one mortgage broker,
Okay.
but what are your thoughts on pros and cons and the difference between a mortgage broker and a lender?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm going to go to the next slide because I don't like that orange. It's like really bright on my screen. Okay, so yeah, so great. So let's do loans 101 really quickly because this is really important for your understanding in this business. There are basically 3 different types of lenders, okay? Type number 1 is going to be your big box banks, US Bank, Wells Fargo, Chase, things like that. And generally those will have good rates because they're like loss leader rates, meaning they do so much bulk and volume that they can go ahead and cut the interest rates to the lowest point because what they really want is to get you on their bank. They want you to be a customer of the bank, okay? The problem with big box banks is that they only work 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. So all of a sudden, if you need a pre-approval letter updated to a certain amount, or a seller wants to call your buyer's lender and get answers about how strong they are as a buyer, and it's a Sunday, good luck. If that seller's making a decision on Sunday, because that's when offers are due, and they can't get a hold of your lender, you've already put your buyer at a loss. Okay. So we don't use big box banks because the customer service is not there. Okay. Some do it, but mostly not. Credit unions, credit unions are pretty good, and they often can be Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. But if you build a relationship with a really good dedicated lender, On Point has several good ones. They will work weekends. For like the little amount that they do have to work, they'll pick up their phone, they'll update things for you, things like that. So not a bad choice. But then they also have very good interest rates. The other type of lender is a mortgage broker. Now, mortgage broker, as you probably can guess, doesn't work for any particular kind of bank. They have options of like a dozen different banks, maybe even more, maybe like 2 dozen. But what a broker does is they really kind of get to know 1 or 2 or 3 loan options. And really that makes up, it's like the 80-20 principle. I'm sure you guys are familiar with. It's kind of like 80% of the loans are done by 20% of their loan programs. So they kind of, they make it sound like, oh, I have all these options, but the reality is they're more narrow than you think. And the other problem I have with brokers is that they're not the decision maker, right? If I call somebody at a bank and they're a lender direct with that bank, they only have that bank's loan programs to use. However, they may usually have more of a direct contact with the underwriter, so that the underwriter calls and says, "Oh man, I got a problem with this one. What's going on?" Then they can just tell the underwriter like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I saw that there's no carbon dioxide, monitors in the house, but the agent told me that they're being put in today. So we're going to be good, and I'll get you proof that they went in, in a couple hours." And then the underwriter can be like, "Okay, I'm not going to just put that file at the bottom and get back to it in 3 days. It's like we can move forward." A mortgage broker doesn't usually have that direct contact with the underwriters of the bank. So if that mortgage broker is using Wells Fargo, he is not a Wells Fargo employee. He doesn't have direct contact. All he's done is he has submitted a loan application on your behalf to Wells Fargo, basically. Okay. So because of that, there's a loss of power and decision making that is important in our business to be able to provide the best customer service to our client. Again, if we're in a situation, it's Sunday night and we need answers, mortgage broker can't get you those answers. Okay. So that's kind of the reason why we don't really go with that. The other kind is a loan officer of a lending institute. And what that means is it's kind of like a bank. Okay. Fairway is like the big one. But all they do are home loans. That's it. So they're not trying to get clients to go open up a savings account like a credit union or a big box bank is. They just want to get you a loan. They have good rates. Sometimes their rates are not always the best, but they're not far. Sometimes they can match the lowest rates. And what's most important though is the service. When it's Sunday at 4 o'clock and offers are due at 4:30, I know that my Fairway person, who's Lori, she's gonna pick up the phone and she's gonna get that done. She's gonna get somebody pre-approved and she's gonna get it done. So my recommendation is have somebody, I'm not going to talk bad about mortgage brokers. If you have a friend, a family member, who is a mortgage broker and they're fantastic at what they do, and they've been doing it for a long time, then I would give them a shot. Absolutely. There's no reason not to. But I've had my most success for my clients by having somebody with a lending firm like Fairway, and then also having a like a credit union like On Point or a private institution like Joe. Joe owns his own lending firm. So that's my recommendation. Yeah.
Is that called a mortgage banker? Is that what they're called? I know we had a gal on a call a month ago, and I think she called herself a mortgage banker, and she sounds kind of like your Fairway gal. I don't know if that's right.
The Fairway people are usually called like loan officers or lending officers. Mortgage banker, I feel like, is a term that the big box banks use.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thanks.
because they want to be more associated as bankers because that's like a respected title. But the lending officers or loan officers, they can't be called bankers. I think that's a different like a series certification or something like that. And so I would guess that person was probably with a bigger bank. So
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Another one you might run into are like commercial banks. You might find somebody, but usually they do like more commercial real estate, but they might be able to do a residential loan. Preparing for the buyer consultation. Okay, let's keep blazing. I may have lied to you guys. It's already 2:30. I thought we'd be off by now, but I slowed us down. Sorry, I need to take a work second here. Okay. Back at it. Preparing for the buyer consultation. Okay, let's find out what we need to know. I am knowledgeable in carrying the, what does this say here? Let me catch up. I am knowledgeable in caring and the best agent for these clients. They will appreciate my expertise and preparation and choose me to represent them as they buy a home. So we're talking about combating negative thinking here. When it's natural, when you don't have a lot of deals under your belt, or you have 0 deals on your belt, you feel like you wear that on your forehead. And it's natural when you're talking to people that you think that they understand how much business you have done. I can tell you that I don't think I have ever had anybody ask me how long I've been in the business or how many deals I've done. Nobody's ever asked. People just don't care, right? Like you don't roll up to your doctor or when your plumber comes over to do a job or something like that and ask him like, hey, is this your day 1 on the job? Like nobody cares. Just, can you do the job? And if you feel like you can do the job, then that's what you should feel like you can do. This right here, this statement is called an affirmation. If you're not familiar with affirmations, they really do work. They're great. And they're great for reminding yourself what it is that you are trying to do. A lot of times affirmations when they started out were like these like gung-ho, like rah, rah, rah type, like I am the best. I am, nobody's as good as an agent as I am. And, blah, blah. And it's all a bunch of crap. What the affirmations that work best for me are the ones that are just a reminder of what I want to do. right? So for example, I might have an affirmation that says, nobody cares about these clients more than I do right now. I mean, that's true. Like, no, like right now I'm sitting down with these people and I am focused. I'm here with you. I'm fully invested in serving you, right? Nobody is more focused on what your needs are than I. Like, that's a simple affirmation. One of my favorite affirmations that is important in this business when you're starting out is that it goes like this. Nobody is, take it. It's really important. It's a, I should know it by heart for I've been saying it for so many years, but nobody is taking it. Oh, here, this is one of my favorite ones here. What does it says? This one helped me get through a lot of slumps because as you get into the business and you see a lot of people doing a lot of business or more business than you, and you're really hurting for business, you get into this mindset of scarcity, and that they're just, like, you lost that buyer, that buyer chose to work with somebody else, and you lost that and you're not going to find another buyer. That's super common. And so here's one of my favorite affirmations. It says, I'm so happy for everyone that is winning. If they have been able to make the right decisions, they deserve it. I don't feel anyone on earth is winning at my expense. And that's so important. If you just can't feel like every time you win or lose a client that somebody else got a bigger share of the pie. There's an infinite number of pieces of pie in this business. And you guys chose to get into this business at a very interesting time. It's kind of like, it's like you're jumping into a hot, bucket of water, right? And I could tell you that bucket of water is 200 degrees. And to you, it really doesn't matter, because it's only 150 degrees. It's still hot, right? You're still feeling the pressure to get business. And so it doesn't really matter if it's hard or really hard or the hardest it's ever been. It's still hard. And so the thing you have to remember is that it's never going to be as hard as today. The next day is going to be challenging. There's going to be times where emotionally you're going to have to decide whether you want to stay in this business or not. But it's never going to be harder because you're going to be more knowledgeable, more experienced. And so going into these buyer consultations, the best way that you can build confidence when you welcome these buyers, I don't know why it's telling me I have 3 minutes, is to really know the contract, because that's the only thing that matters. At the end of the day, the contract is the rules of the game. Okay. It's how you're going to serve them or financially destroy them. If you don't meet your numbers and your needs or your dates, and for example, you can ask somebody, what are you looking for in a home? It's like, oh, I'm looking for a house in Beaverton that's a 3-bed, 2-bath. Okay, great. How about this one? They're like, yeah, I love that. Okay, great. Let's write a contract. Okay, so you murder the contract. You miss all these check marks and stuff. You just do a terrible job. The listing agent is super nice and says, hey man, I understand you're new. Let me send you an addendum to fix this stuff. Okay, great. And then all of a sudden, 3 days goes by and your buyer has not turned in their earnest money deposit. And you're like, oh, shoot. Like, okay, sorry about that. We'll get that in as soon as possible. So then the seller's like, okay, that was one mess up. Now what's happening? Okay, now 7 days goes by. It's the end of the inspection period and you miscounted because you thought the 7th day actually lands on the next day. And now all of a sudden your buyer just got stuck with a $20,000 sewer problem. Okay. Or something even more simple. Like one time I had to buy a client a washer and dryer because I neglected to include that on the contract and then tell him that the washer and dryer wasn't included in the deal. Okay. That took a lot of commission out of my pocket. Okay. I didn't make that mistake again. So you really have to understand the contract, understand exactly what are the dates involved, what does the contract say, can you explain that contract to your clients? Start with the buyer contract. If you haven't read that contract 10 times, and I'm not joking about that, 10 times, filled it out 10 times like you pretended to make 10 offers, then when it's time to make a quick offer, especially if you're against the clock, I've had times where a buyer's like, I love this house, I have to have it. And then I call the listing agent. She's like, yeah, we've got 3 offers in hand and we're looking at them in an hour. Can you get me an offer in an hour? It's like, if you're still learning that contract, you just lost that client an opportunity to win that house. Okay. You have to know the contract forward and back. Nothing is more important. And when you do that, when you do know the contract, going to a buyer consultation and asking the person, do you want 3 or 4 bedrooms, is really so simple. It's just caring about your client and loving on them. This wants to talk about love letters, liability letters. This was a state law that got passed by some knucklehead who is supposedly a licensed agent and also one of our senators or council members or something like that. And it was kind of during the time where people were reevaluating how they thought and talked about people and stuff like that. And I think it's important, but it got passed back. They said, look, Oregon has really strict laws on fair housing. And, I think that's fine. There's ways to make love letters not, go against our fair housing policies. It used to be when you would create a love letter, you would talk a lot about yourself. And I'm talking about like the buyers. So the buyers would say, hi, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. We love your house. We're Joe and Melinda. We just had our first kid, and we're so happy to be parents. And we're having my aging father who's in a wheelchair come, and we're just so thankful that the house is a single story. And, on and on and on. So right then the people were like, ooh, gosh, like this person's in a wheelchair. I personally built my front porch and I'm really proud of it. And I really don't want them putting a ramp because I really think it'd mess up the aesthetics. And I've been in this house for 30 years. I love this house. And I just don't want to sell to somebody who needs a wheelchair ramp, Or I think the kids are going to destroy my wife's mural that she wrote or that she drew before she passed away in the backyard. I just don't think it's a good place for a house for kids. Those are the kind of the issues that love letters created for people. And so what we do now is we just talk about the house. Love letters are important. I've even had success with love videos. Okay. Again, videos, you have to be really careful. And some listing agents, depending on their sensitivity towards the subject, may not want those or something like that because it puts them at liability. You have to make that choice on what's going to work for you. But I recommend that you do include love letters and you do include that as a benefit to your buyer. The buyers have heard of these. They heard their friend from work say how they wrote a letter to the seller and it's what got them the house. So don't skip over these. Don't forget about them, but just keep them simple. They should be typed, not handwritten like this. And you should probably be typing them. You should be in control of them being appropriate or not. And so, gosh, I wonder if let me see. One second, I'm going to stop my share. And I'm going to see 1 second here, just to give you guys an idea. Okay, so here's a love letter that I wrote. Okay, this is what it looks like. Okay, can everybody see this? So so this is a love letter. It's simple and it's straight to the point. We love your house. We've been looking for a home with charm, positive energy that can only feel, blah, blah, blah. Then we saw, oh shoot, it should say your kitties. And we would like to add a family, to add to our family a puppy, as well as a huge garden. So the only thing you know about these buyers is that I think they have a cat. Yeah, it says we have a fur baby too, but it doesn't even tell you if it's a dog or a cat. So you don't really know anything about them. You don't know what is our family. It says our family. You can see there's 2 people down here, so you know that they're at least married. Okay, fine, but you don't know if they have kids, if they have grandkids living with them. You don't know if the family just means that their animals are with them. So keep the first paragraph really general. Talk only about the house as much as you can. The second paragraph is really important. This outlines the benefits of this. So when you make an offer on a house for your buyer, some of the things you can do for the terms, you're talking about making the process easy for them. And you have an amazing lender, and they can close as soon as possible. And she's going to close in 16 days. Okay, these are all benefits to them. You're giving them free rent back till July 31st. And then for financing, they have 20% down, and they don't want to hold up the process with the inspections. So we'll take on all fixes under $3,000. Some people do 2,000 or 1,500 or whatever. And if there's anything else we can do for you two to help you have an easy and fun process, let us know. Okay, that's it. It's really, not not a lot there that you have to worry about. Let me go back to the
Hey,
sheet.
Phil,
Yeah.
did you have them write it and then you typed it up or rewrote it or clarified it and then sent it on, or did you do the whole thing for them?
That time I did the whole thing. Sometimes I will, usually I have them do it. And again,
Okay.
Jim might tell you have them do it. But the problem is what I found is a lot of times they talk too much about themselves and they don't really know how to do it. All my love letters pretty much sound the same, except for maybe little change about what they love about the house in the first paragraph. So therefore, I just kind of basically use the same
So
letter.
do you say, hey, it can help to have what we call a love letter, which is just a expression of interest in the home submitted with the offer? Would you like to write that, or would you like me to help put one together? Like, do you give them the option? Do you let them know if they don't do it that you would like to do one for them? Like, I wouldn't want to submit something
Yeah.
without their approval.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you do this, you send it over in the package, like you would upload it to SkySlope, and then you'd send that whole package over for them to sign. At that point, they see it. And I would have them review it maybe even before that step. Okay. And so yeah, you don't want to send over something that they didn't write or didn't approve for sure. Yeah. But when you're like in your buyer consultation, you're talking to them about this kind of stuff, or they ask you about, do you do love letters for me? Then you can give them that option. If they decide to do it themselves, then you will have to coach them further on. What they can and can't say. And you'll basically end up having to edit it down anyway. So that's why I personally have been saying, hey, I'm going to write a letter on your behalf about why you love the house. And then I'll send that to them to review. And then they can make any changes that they want to. And sometimes they'll make a change and I'll just say, we can't do that based off of fair housing laws. So, okay. All right, we're really pushing on time. This is taking way longer than I thought. Okay. So getting the signed buyer agreement. Okay, we were talking about that. I think our next step is just to recap after that. So we are almost there. Okay, so yeah, so daily success system. I mean, we can talk about that, but that's pretty quick. Recap and ahas. Yeah, we're almost there. Getting the signed buyer agreement. Okay. So what we've done so far, okay, we have tried to figure out who our buyers are that are A buyers who want to buy within the next 6 months. Then we are getting the appointment with them. And sometimes these are reversed, right? We're getting the appointment with anybody and everybody that has any interest in buying. And then we're sussing out what their motivation and time is. In the process of figuring out when to have that appointment, there's an acronym called LP Mama. Are you guys familiar with LP Mama? Yeah, some people are.
Well, a
Yeah.
little bit. I've heard it a couple
Mhm.
of times, but could you elaborate again?
Yeah. So and I used this for a long time at open houses as just kind of a thing. And again, it's great to learn scripts, but a script is really a way for you to make sure that you can, lead the conversation and hit points that are important for you to know. Okay. And so you don't have to have the right words to have a script. An LP Mama is a script in the way that it just reminds you what to ask and which points to hit along the way. So what it stands for, L is for location. Okay. P is for what is it? So it's a location. Price. P is for price. M is for, and this swaps sometimes. So M would be a mortgage. A would be agent. M is motivation. And then the A is for appointment. Now, I swap personally. I like to swap the MAs. So when I was at an open house, in my head, I would think location, price. Oh no, that was it. It was motivation, then agent, mortgage, and then appointment. That's the original LP Mama. The way I just told you the first time is the way I have it ingrained in my head. And the reason why is because it's an easier flow of conversation. Somebody walks in the door and I say, "Hey guys, are you guys looking at other properties in this neighborhood?" And they say, "No, this is the only one." Or are you interested in only this area or this town or this neighborhood or whatever? Okay, so that's location. Start that conversation. They start saying, "Yeah, we're basically wanting to just stay in Hillsborough." Okay, great. And so is this kind of at the top or bottom of your price point? And they're like, "Well, we think it's kind of right in the middle, I'm like, "That's cool, that's great. Have you guys gotten pre-approved yet?" That's the mortgage. The M for mortgage is pre-approval, right? Do you have a mortgage officer, but have you gotten pre-approved? Do you really know that this house is in the middle of your price point, or are you just guessing based off of some crappy mortgage calculator on Zillow, right? So the next thing is I ask them, "Oh, have you gotten pre-approved yet?" And they're like, yes or no. And then I'm like, "Oh, okay." If they say yes, and I say, "Oh, did your agent refer the lender to you, or how did you find the lender?" Then I find out that way if they have a lender or not. If they say, "No, I don't have a lender, or I don't have an agent, or we don't have a lender," then I just ask them straight up, "Oh, you don't have a lender yet. Do you have an agent that you have committed to, or are you still interviewing agents?" If you ask somebody straight up, "Do you have an agent?" 95% of the time, people will say yes. Just like when you walk into a store and somebody asks you, "Can I help you?" You say no, right? "I'm just browsing." But you're most absolutely at a store to do something and to get something. It's the same reflex. Do you have an agent? They're going to say yes. So instead you say, and then a lot of times, you play that game where you're like, "Oh, who's your agent?" And they're like, "Oh, Kathy, I don't really know her last name, but it's, Kathy." And you're like, "Okay, so what am I going to do? Grill you on whether you're committed?" No, it's stupid. So stop asking people if they have an agent and who that agent is. We have 8,900 agents in PMR. You probably don't know them. And if you do, then you end up saying like, "Oh yeah, I know them. Yeah, they're a good agent." Or what are you going to say? Like, "No, they're a crappy agent. You should work with me." There's no point to that. So if you're learning that from scripts or something like that, there's no point to that. What you should say instead is, have you committed to working with an agent, or are you still interviewing agents? Because that's going to be a more decisive answer for them of, "Yeah, we've got an agent," or we're still looking around, we're still considering." And so that then opens the door for you to say, "Okay, great. Well, I'd love to interview for that job. I've been in the business for a long time and helped a lot of people. And so, when are you guys looking to buy?" Okay, that's the motivation for that last M. And then that's when you find out, are they an A buyer? Are they like, "Yeah, we need to move in now. Like we just moved in from Chicago and we want to have the kids settled before school starts in 2 months." Okay, versus somebody who's like, our lease is up in, a year from now. We just signed a new year lease for our apartment. So we're in no rush. Okay, that's like a C buyer, maybe a B buyer. So that's kind of, you use LP Mama to figure that out. But then you always get the appointment, and the appointment then ends with the item of value, which is, hey, that's cool. I know you guys are probably in no rush. You just started looking. Have you taken a buyer class yet? And they're like, no. And you're like, well, I found a lot of my clients really benefit from that, because we go over the market, we go over how to find the best interest rates, and we go over how to not overpay when you're in a multiple offer situation. Are those things that you might want to get together and talk about? And they're like, yeah, those are concerns of ours. Okay, cool. All right. Well, let me shoot you a text, and we can set up a time to meet. Okay. And then once they give you a phone number, you're like, yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll probably send you the Zoom link on email. So what's your email as well? Okay. Now I got both their contact information. If they stop me there and they say, you can just text me, then you clarify. Well, okay, but if I have to send you a Zoom link, do you want that just on your phone? Or are you going to want to do that on your computer? You just kind of ask questions. You just figure it out. But that's how you get the to that point. Now, getting the signed buyer agreement. This is really important because buyer agreements, like we talked about, they're state and national law now. Okay, it used to be good for practice. And the way that you would do that before, which I think is the same way we're doing it now, but just in an accelerated way. Well, I'll tell you that in a second. But the way we used to do that is after we would have that buyer consultation, which we will call a buyer class, but it's just one-on-one. We would then figure out their timing, and then we would say, okay, did you want me to start sending you properties? Here's Lori's information. You start getting pre-approved. It should only take you a couple of days to do that. Did you want to go look at properties this weekend? And they've spent an hour with you on this buyer consultation. Now you start building rapport and trust. They like you. And they're like, yeah, let's go look at some properties this weekend. Or maybe they're like, we're not in any rush. I still have to wait for my bonus to come in like in a month or two. And then we feel like we'll have more money and we'll be ready to like start looking then. And you're like, great, I'll call you in, a month, and then we'll follow up and see then. I'm not going to push them for a buyer agreement. Okay. Some people would, I wouldn't. The person that wants to go see property this weekend, then I'm like, okay, I'm going to send you some properties to look at. You let me know which of those you want to go look at. We don't look at it any more than 7, because it's just too much for the human mind to remember more than 7 things. And then I'm also going to send you this little buyer agreement that just says that I'm committed to working with you and you're committed to working with me. Okay. And that's it. And if somebody balks and says, I'm not going to commit to you, you're just more questions, right? You're just opening that up to a conversation. Oh, is that right? Oh, what? Oh, okay. You're not ready to commit. Why is that? Today though, how I would do it is I just blame it on state and national law. I'll just say, hey, you probably heard about that settlement from NAR. We are now required by law to have a buyer agreement signed that says I'm committed to you and you're committed to me before I can let you into any houses. So I'm going to send that over for your signature. And when you send that back, then I can set up the tours. Okay. That's it. If they balk at that, they say, well, I'm not going to sign that. I'm not going to commit. You're going to say, okay, so are you saying that you do want to work with other agents then? And then again, that's another conversation. Well, how come you feel? Did you have a bad experience with agents before? Is your cousin an agent and you secretly promised that you would work with them? Like, let's get it out. Let's talk about this, because I'm not going to drive around and show you 7 houses this Saturday when I should be spending time with my kids, and then find out that, cousin Linda just got her license last weekend. So that's kind of, that's how I go about that. How are we doing on time? Are we done? We're done. 2:57. I apologize. I couldn't get this done any sooner. But hopefully you guys learned a lot today. And if there's any other questions, have I been sharing my screen this whole time or not?
Yeah,
I
you've been
haven't.
sharing your screen.
Oh, here's
Before
the
you
button.
Before
Yeah.
you leave, I just want to make sure I have your email. It was phil@timberandrose.com. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. All right.
PHIL, not Bill, but Phil. PHIL at timberandrose.com. So the last thing I'm going to challenge you guys to do, I know you guys have probably had a lot of instructors on here, or maybe the same instructors with Jen over the time, but you know, your checklist as a buyer who's been in this business for about, let's say, 3 to 6 weeks. Right now, the most important thing that you do is pretend to fill out the buyer sale agreement 10 times. 12 if you can do it. 15 if you can do it. 20 if you can do it. That's the most important thing. You should be able to know that on page 8 it says this, and on page 11 is where you're going to find your close date, right? And that page or that line 159 is where you're required to include the addendum for seller compensation. You know what I mean? Like it should be that granular. And so, because that's what you are. You are a contract expert as far as people buying and selling. The rest is just details. So that's step 1. Step 2, if you haven't set up some affirmations, you know, it would be good because this business will take you down mentally really fast as you go on to week 7, week 8, week 10, month 5. All of a sudden you haven't done any business and you're looking around and Kristen Rader just did 6 listings and you're like, what the heck? Then you need to remember that the pie is big enough for everybody. You have to have a mindset of abundance or you're not going to make it, period. The third thing is you need to be reading something always. And the first book that you should read front to back is The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. And you should probably read it 2 or 3 times back to back. A lot of the stuff can be redundant, like in the one thing. So if you read a couple of Keller Williams books back to back, you're going to get a lot of the same messaging. And so that's okay. But 10 minutes before bed every night to help you sleep better, just read. The other thing is the touring. Okay, when we talk about how fast can you build confidence as a new buyer's agent, number 1 is, do you know your contracts? Do you know the rules of the game? Okay, and that'll help you with the process too. If you're still confused on, you know, what comes first and then what comes next and what comes after that and when do appraisals fit in and what happens if the appraisal doesn't appraise, it's all in the contracts. It's spelled out, every scenario. That's why the contracts are so important. You know those contracts, you know the game, you know the process, you know what it's going to expect when your buyer says to you, well, what happens if the house under appraises? And you'd be like, oh, well, you know, you can pull out within 3 business days or whatever. So the other thing though is touring property once a week. Okay, if you have nothing else to do, you should be out touring property. If you are completely unemployed right now and you are a full-time agent, your day should start, say at, you know, whenever you can start, let's say 9 o'clock, whenever you drop the kids off, and you study a contract for like an hour or 2 every day. Okay, then you go out and you hit every single vacant house in one area or neighborhood. And then the next day, you do it again. You study your contracts for an hour or 2, and you go out and you tour property for like 2 or 3 hours. Okay, you should be able to hit about 3 properties an hour on average. Okay, so you should hit 10 houses a day, and you did 10 in Hillsborough, and the next day you did 10 in Beaverton, and the next day you did 10 in Raleigh Hills, and the next day you did 10 in Tigard, and then the next day you did 10 in Forest Grove, or whatever your area is. Okay, but within a week, you will have then seen 50 homes of all different types. You've gotten to understand how the neighborhoods flow, the ages of the house, the layouts, you know, different updates and things like that, price points, and at the same time, you're crushing the contracts. That should be all you're doing basically for like the first week. Now you guys have been in for like 5 or 6 weeks now, but if you never did that, go back and start again. Then the next week, after you've built that confidence, you know the contract, you know the order process, and you know your area that you're working in, now you start reaching out to all your friends and family, and you start putting them in your command database. If you haven't already, it's just important, period. People skip that step. They want to use Excel sheets and things like that. Just use command. It's good. It's really good. They've been building it for a long time. But you want to just start reaching out to people and then give them a call. I mean, we talked about in the beginning of the call today, it's not necessarily helping them, but it's helping somebody they know. And helping somebody they know is not necessarily helping them buy or sell. It's helping them, usually for us, what we call our care calls are based off of, do you need any contractor recommendations? So when I call somebody, I say, hey, do you have any home remodels expected? They're like, no, we don't have any money. We can't remodel the home. Okay, cool. What about landscaping? You still happy with your landscaper? Yeah, we're happy with our landscaper. Okay, cool. Well, hey, just wanted to let you know that I got great painters, I got great landscapers, I got great plumbers. If anything comes up, will you give me a call? I say, yeah, we'll give you a call. And they won't, but that's okay, because then they're going to get a call again next quarter. You do this every 90 days. You just reach out. Hey, is anything changed with the landscaper? And 95% of the time it'll be no, we're fine. But then there'll be that time where somebody's like, hey, you know what? Actually, my wife, I have a poker group that I put together every month. And this buddy at my poker group was like, he's like, you know what? I got to transfer some trees in my yard. And the landscaper I use, I just don't trust to do that without killing the shrubs. He's like, do you know anybody? And I was like, absolutely. I didn't know anybody, but I made some calls. I figured it out. I found out who could do that. And my neighbor, he had just had a bunch of yard work with a professional guy. And so I called my neighbor the next day and I said, hey, Jim, what can you send me the information of that guy who was in your yard last month? And so I just sent that to him. I said, hey, this guy, you know, I saw his work across the street. I thought he did really well. Give him a shot. And like the next month, that the buddy came back. He's like, thanks for that referral. The guy worked out really great. He was affordable. He did a great job. So that's what you're doing, right? You are there as people's resource for their homes. You know, whether they want to talk about interest rates, whether they want to talk about how to transplant their trees without killing them, whether they need a plumber. They're not going to call you in a plumbing emergency, but you know, they might call you if they're, you know, looking to find out if they need to change to a you know, electric hot water heater or something like that. So that's what you're doing. And if you keep up with that, the other thing I want to tell you, not to go too long here, but the biggest mistake new buyers make, yeah, thanks so much, Santosh. The biggest mistake buyers make is they underestimate the amount of time it takes to be successful in this business. Do not compare yourself with agents who have been in the business longer than you, even like a year longer, really. You know, Gary Keller often says people overestimate how much they can get done in a year, and they underestimate how much they can get done in 5. So if this is a business where you're kind of like trying it out and you're just going to see if it works, it's not going to work. Okay. You have to go in, you have to dedicate the time to it every day, like it's a real business. Doesn't mean you have to be a full-time agent, but if you're not studying contracts at night or in the morning or you know, nap time or whenever you can, then you're not as competitive as the people that are, you know? And so I would take it serious. I'd be in it as much as you can, and then be realistic about how much time you're putting into the business. Because if you compare yourself against Aubrey Martin or Kristen Rader or Noah Kragerud, good luck. You know, they've been in the business for 20 years. 20 years they've been building up those care calls, and you're just not going to compete. So go out, work hard, and be easy on yourself. Santosh isn't here anymore, but he was saying like, oh, you know, I'm not putting in the work that I need to put in. You know, take it easy on yourself. This is the most difficult business emotionally that there probably is out there. And, you know, but it's also one of the most important businesses that you can be in. And it's not because you're helping people sign buyer agreements. It's because when they call you and they need their plants put back in and not die on them, it's about trust. It's about being that resource. And that's an important part of being in your community. So embrace it, but it takes time. So, okay. Anybody have any questions?
I do. I have a
Yeah.
question about the comment you made about like whenever you were saying learn the contracts, go out and see houses. A
Mhm.
lot of the houses are by appointments only.
Mhm.
So, I mean, do you think like if
What
you're
you do
going
is you
on the
go-
RMLS and looking up houses, like
Yeah,
would
no,
they
so,
be
yeah, when you're
upset?
doing your tours, go on and then create a it's under, I think it's occupancy under
Okay.
the terms. And and there should be an option to only look at vacant houses.
Okay.
And then vacant houses, you should be able to just go in without appointments.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Thank you.
yeah, you bet. Okay. Anything else? Okay, great. You guys have my email. If you need anything, let me know.
Yeah. Thank you. This was an amazing class.
Good.
Very
Thank
Good.
enjoyable.
Thank you very much.
You
Yeah,
too.
let Jen and Katie and Jordan know if it was helpful, and that way they don't think I screwed you guys up too much. So, okay. Thanks, guys. Have a good one. Cheers.
Thanks.